This Insider Test Prep video lesson will examine 3 rhetorical devices that often appear in critical reading questions on both the PSAT and the SAT. Our first rhetorical device is an analogy. An analogy is a comparison of an unfamiliar object to a familiar object. Now, College Board test writers often ask you to recognize an analogy in a critical reading passage. Let's take an example. The menhaden is a small, oily fish that swims in tightly packed schools. The human liver is a key body organ that lies on the right side of the abdominal cavity beneath the diaphragm. What does the menhaden have in common with the human liver? Well, the menhaden are filter feeders that consume vast quantities of phytoplankton, thus preventing algae blooms that can devastate coastal fisheries. Similarly, the human liver acts as a filter that removes harmful substances from the blood. So, we can make an analogy. We can say that menhaden are to obey as the liver is to the human body. Both filter out harmful substances. Our second term is an anecdote. An anecdote is a short story that illustrates a point. Anecdotes are one of the most frequently used correct answer choices on both critical reading and sentence completion questions. It is very important to remember that PSAT and SAT anecdotes are both very short and always fit within a single paragraph. Now, let me give you an example. In his autobiography, the famous baseball pitcher Satchel Paige used the following humorous anecdote to address the controversial question of his true age. Quote, "They've been carrying on so long about my age, nobody will believe what I say. Like the gent I ran into back in 1947. He quit playing in 1910, but he is sure that he played against me." Now note that the anecdote was short and it was personal. Our third rhetorical device is parallel structure. Parallel structure is the repetition of words, phrases, or sentences that are similar in structure. Parallel structure is a rhetorical device that is tested on both the writing and the critical reading sections. Now, parallel structure is very easy to spot in a critical reading passage. Let me give you an example from the novel The Namesake by Jhumpa Lahiri. Quote, "It is as Nikhil that he introduces himself to people he meets. It is as Nikhil that he takes the train into Manhattan with Jonathan." Now note the repetition of the phrase, "it is as Nikhil," in 2 straight sentences. This is a particularly good example of parallel structure. We've looked at 3 rhetorical devices. First, an analogy is a comparison of an unfamiliar object to a familiar object. Second, an anecdote is a short story told to illustrate a point. And third, parallel structure is the repetition of words, phrases, or sentences that are similar in structure.